Very nice, Jan. All right, so we are going to solve this problem 17 using completing the square. Now, this problem is a little bit more complicated than number 11. Has some more pieces going on, but it's going to come out with some nice round even, or not even, but nice round numbers. Now, when we're solving a quadratic using the completing the square method, a couple things have to be true. We have to have the quadratic term by itself. We need to have the quadratic and the linear term by themselves on one side of the equal sign, and we have to have the plain number on the other side. Now, the quadratic term is the thing that's squared. The linear term is the thing that's the variable that's not squared. In this case, it's just the y that's not squared. And we also need to have an a value of 1. So, what am I going to do to get this 9y to go over to the other side? Kyle? I'm going to subtract 9y from both sides. And so I'm going to get 2y squared minus 9y is equal to negative 9. Now, the other condition that we talked about was having an a value that is 1. Do we have an a value that is 1? No. We have an a value that is 2. So how can I get an a value of 1? Sarah? Divide everything by 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So divided by 2, divided by 2, divided by 2. And so we get y squared minus 9 over 2y is equal to negative 9 over 2. So we've satisfied our conditions of having all the variables on one side of the equal sign, and we've satisfied the condition of having an a value of 1. So, my next step, I'm going to rewrite the equation over here. So I have y squared minus 9 over 2y plus something. I'm not sure what that something is quite yet. And that's going to equal negative 9 over 2 plus the same something. Again, I don't know what that something is. So I'm going to shrink this work so I have a little more room. All right. So we have the plus something. All right. Now, what goes in the blank is going to be our b value divided by 2, and we're going to square it. Again, the same thing is going to go in this blank. Oops, should have put the parenthesis there, my fault. So, what is our b value? What? Negative 9 over 2, but we don't have to worry about the negative because a negative squared was a positive. So we have 9 over 2, and we are going to divide it by 2. Right? We're going to divide it by 2. So if you're going to divide something by 2, how do you divide fractions by 2? We're just basic fraction stuff here. Ian? It'd be multiplied by 2 over 1. You're right, because you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So we have 9 over 2 times 1 over 4, or sorry, 1 over 2. Sorry. I got ahead of myself. 9 times 1 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. So, my b value divided by 2 is going to be 9/4. And then I'm going to square it to get what goes into the blank. So what is b over 2 squared? b over 2 squared. Kyle again?
5.06.
We want to keep it in fractional form. We really want to keep this in fractional form. It'll be easier later. Hill? 81 over 16. Now don't worry, I know the numbers are starting to look a little freaky here. It's going to work out. Trust me on this one. Now we'll also remember that when you factor this term, you're just going to end up with your variable, in this case y, the sign of the middle term, which is negative, and your b over 2 value. Well, what is your b over 2 value? 9/4. And it's going to be squared, and that's going to equal this piece here. So if I'm to add negative 9 halves to 81/16, what must I do first? Get a common denominator. All right. So obviously the common denominator is going to be 16. So what am I going to multiply negative 9 over 2 by? Callan? 8. We're going to 8 over 8, because 8 divided by 8 is 1. So I'm going to multiply this by 8, multiply this by 8 as well. And so I am going to get 72, that's a negative 72, over 16. Well, what is 81 minus 72?
9.
9. Oh, my goodness. That's really nice, because that's a perfect square, isn't it? What is and we just keep the same denominator, which is 16. So y minus 9 over 4 squared is equal to 9/16. So y minus 9 over 4 squared is equal to 9/16. What's my next step? What must I do next? Nathan? Square root it. So let's take the square root. So what is the square root of y minus 9 over 4 squared? Y minus 9 over 4. And that's going to equal, well, what's the square root of 9?
3.
What's the square root of 16? So we get nice numbers now. Isn't that really cool? So now the other thing that I have to remember is when I'm taking the square root, 3/4 times 3/4 is 9/16. But we have to remember that negative 3/4 times negative 3/4 is also 9/16. So we have plus or minus 3/4. At this point, we are ready to look for our two roots. And we'll remember also that a root, let's see what I get here. Oh, I can redraw that later. Root is a synonym for the solution or the x-intercepts of an equation. So here's our square root. So we have a positive 3/4 and a negative 3/4. So now we're going to take our trip to positive world and negative land. So positive world, negative land. So in positive world, the sun is in fact shining right now. So we have y minus 9/4 is equal to positive 3/4. On the other side, we have y minus 9/4 is equal to negative 3/4. So what do I do to both sides to get the y by itself? Add 9/4. So if I add 9/4, sorry, this should be fourths. If I add 9/4 to both sides, I get y is equal to, well, what's 3 plus 9? 12. 12 over 4. What's another way of saying 12 over 4? 3. So y is equal to 3, but that's not the only solution. In our negative side, we're going to add 9/4 as well, plus 9/4 as well. And so we get y is equal to negative 3 plus 9 is 6. We get 6 over 4. 6 over 4 can be reduced. We don't really want it in a decimal form. Let's have it in improper fraction form. What goes into 6? What goes into 4? 2. So we have 3 over 2. And so your solutions, also known as roots of this equation, are y is equal to 3 and y is equal to 3 over 2. Are there any questions? Yeah. That's fine. Yes?
But I just did it in not